Okay, we're back. Can I have that back, please? And we resolved a way we think Max can get hold of our two lovely ladies in New York, so we can get the American view. And he is busy getting hold of them as we speak, letting them know what the link is to get into our. Right, are you doing it? Right. Okay.
You put the password in, I don't know.
Oh, there you go. Okay, is password. Is that they are paranoid? These guys. I think there must be something to do with school. Paranoia must be. There must be a course, Paranoia 101, which a lot of people who get involved in computers and so on take. Because they are paranoid, absolutely paranoid. Do you need to know the link thing, or you're able to get it there? Are you? Yes, good. Okay, all right. Well, I'm going to carry on then, because one of the things that I remember quite clearly is the Queen's coronation of 1953, and she was a young queen thrust into the limelight. In fact, she was on holiday in South Africa, as I recall. And if my memory serves me right, HMS Vanguard. But what was life like when she became a queen? Well, if you'll accept my memory for little bits and pieces, I mean, the main thing I recall is that sweets were still on ration, that you still could only get a quarter of sweets, and the government, in its wisdom, decided that it would do away with rationing for sweets. The shops were emptied within days. People just rushed in because they hadn't been used to being able to buy sweets for any length of time. Rushed in, and the shops were emptied again, so they had to put them back on ration. But things like coal, which was the only means of heating in the main, that and wood, coal stayed on ration even longer than sweets. And petrol was also rationed. I can remember streets with very little traffic. My first car was gifted to me by my grandfather, and it was an Austin 7. I was no dummy. I learned my management skills with this. Do you need this still?
No, it should be all right.
Okay. I had a friend, John, who understood the workings of the internal combustion engine, whereas I, on the other hand, did not. And there would be little bits of fuel and grit clog up the fuel line. So suddenly this car would go and stop, but we knew what it was. So I would actually get out. I would lift up the hood. I would pass the fuel line to John, who would then suck it and get this awful petrol stuff in his mouth and spit it out and get the car running again. But I would stand by with the sweets, so that I offered him a sweet to take the taste of the petrol out of his mouth. Boy, that was my first entry into management. But also the brakes on this car, is you needed to pump them. So you had to guess where you were going to stop when you saw a stop sign coming up, and you pumped away. We took half the cricket team in this little car, with them sticking out of the roof and so on, things that today you would never dream of doing in a car. And you would pass police cars and they didn't care. They were quite happy. They'd got other things to do. and this little car was my first one. I'm sorry that it ended its life by being dismantled for parts and so on, but that was the 1950s that Queen Elizabeth began her reign. There were street parties for the coronation, and you went and you sat, and the local community had raised money so that they could have sandwiches and cakes and jellies and things that modern day children wouldn't dream of eating. But to us, they were absolutely superb. It was the stuff that parties were made of. Spangles on ice cakes. Oh, don't mention ice cakes. That's a rough issue around here. An ice cake is what's got us into the present situation, for which I will not forgive those silly people who sit in Westminster. Ah, there we go. I think it's just you, right? Okay, but you're checking it, right? Well done. Okay. Well, let's hope that we are going to see Melissa and we are going to see Suzanne in the fullness of time. It is only 11 minutes past 9, and we are reviewing and thinking about the years in which the Queen, who passed away peacefully yesterday, came to power, became monarch after the death of her father, King George VI, who had been a brilliant leader through the war years. He refused to move out of Buckhouse. He said if the people of London were putting up with a blitz, he would too. He was very much a king of the people. And of course, if you've seen it, there's a marvelous movie called The King's Speech. And the King's Speech is about the fact that King George VI had a dreadful stutter. He could not make speeches. But as king, because his elder brother, Edward VIII, abdicated for the love of Mrs. Simpson, an American divorcee, and left him holding the bag, as it were, and therefore Elizabeth, because she would not, if Edward had come to the throne, she would not have assumed the monarchy the way that she did. She became the number one successor. And her father had this terrible speech manifestation, a stutter. And the movie, which is a really good movie, well worthwhile watching, The King's Speech, is about an Australian who had a controversial way of treating people with that sort of speech, and how he managed to get the king to make speeches without stuttering and without actually sort of cocking it up, as it were. So watch out for it. The King's Speech. It's Colin Firth, I think, plays the part of the young king. I don't know. I can't remember who plays the part of the therapist, but they have a very strange relationship where they call one another by their first names, even though in the 1930s and 40s that the protocol still call for a very formal way of talking to people. A late friend of mine, one of the giants of the reporting industry, and of course, we are all forgotten as time moves on and the technology is changing the face of media. But there is was a BBC correspondent called Bob Elphick. And Bob got a very acute sense of humor. But he covered the Prague Spring and many other big moments for the BBC. But he said when he joined the BBC, any communication was, "Dear Mr. Elphick." No, sorry, "Dear Elphick." No title at all. Then it went to "Dear Mr. Elphick." And he said in his latter days, and now it was "Dear Bob." And it just showed how our way of addressing each other has changed over the years. But in the time that the Queen came to power, we still called people Mr. We call our teachers Sir. And actually, we actually, in some instances, call prefects at school Sir.
Really?
No, yes, indeed.
Prefects.
Indeed. In fact, the prefects at school, and this wasn't just Eton and Harrow, because I didn't go to either of them, but the prefects at school had enormous power. They probably just about that time had been the idea that they could thrash younger boys with the cane had disappeared, perhaps just before the Second World War. But they were able to administer punishments and to haul people in on a Saturday morning for detention, to give them lines, to administer all sorts of punishments. That you had a separate tie and cap badge, which in our case had the streak of purple, which was the Roman purple of authority through the badge.
I don't know what it was in your day, what it was like in your day, but prefects were the most hated students in all of the school.
Of course they were, but everybody
Still are.
aspired to be one.
Oh yeah, you wanted to be one.
Yeah. Are we plugged into our power source? I thought that I'd done it. And
no, you haven't.
right. Okay. Where is it?
I'm not sure. I assume still in your bag, maybe. I'll sort it out.
I actually pulled it out. Is it there?
Don't worry about it. I'll sort it out.
Yeah. Okay. It's just I don't want us to run out halfway through our program this morning. The bits and the pieces. The bits and the pieces. Anyway, so we run through the headlines. Max is looking at the insides, but they're all to do with. Right, it's there. So I didn't actually plug it in. Naughty, naughty boy. Just shows how your mind plays tricks with you. Max has been looking at the inside of the papers this morning, but it is all to do with the royal family and the death of the Queen. Although there is some stuff about what Liz Truss is going to do.
Every single page, apart from two, are about the Queen, and the two that aren't about the Queen are about Liz Truss.
Right. Okay. Now I understand that any detail of any package has been postponed because of the Queen's death. So we don't know in detail. Just that she says she'll save families over £1,000 a year. God only knows how she's going to do that. That would be very interesting.
Convenient timing for her.
And actually, I see some economists are beginning to say that she's doing the right thing. Costly, yes, but the move could ward off a recession, say some economists. So that's good news. The Prime Minister unveils a package to freeze the average bills at $2,500. That's still an awful lot. But then if we're going to get some help, right, £100 billion plus plan includes a new dash for gas and oil. Well, now, Max, you share the energy program on a Wednesday with Stuart, and I believe I am right in saying that Stuart is very skeptical about both North Sea oil and fracking. Is that correct?
Yes, he's skeptical of both.
He's skeptical about both. Yeah. Well, that's one thing that we need to keep an eye on, and believe me, I'm quite sure that Stuart will. And businesses to get equivalent help. Windfall tax ruled out. In other words, she's not going to charge the big boys, but she is going to help the little guys. And I would say, whoop-de-doo. The trouble is that they set the They set the criteria so that companies like ours, as we did through COVID, don't qualify. And there are 3 million of us. If you just think that it's funny little old Mirador broadcasting out of the White Hart, it's 3 million of us. So if it's a similar sort of thing, it's not going to help us.
Is this her current email, by the way?
It's what, sorry?
Is that her current up-to-date one?
Yes, I think so.
Okay,
is it Melissa Maria, something like that?
Winter.
No, that's not it.
Okay.
There's another one. Yeah, let's let's go to the park first of all. We need a breather because it is now 9:20, and we've been struggling along, really feeling very somber and not able to do some of the silly things that we do to amuse you in a morning. It is not a morning for. Right, here we are, back again, and let's replay, which we did at the top of the program. First of all, our Jubilee program, which puts things into a nutshell. We are still hammering away at technology. If there is anything that's crazy in this world, it is those people who are involved with social media. They're all daft. They've gone mad, stark staring mad, to the point where is a very simple operation up until about 5 years ago has now become so complicated that nobody can find their way around. I mean, this is just so crazy. I just don't understand it. But anyway, that was the coronation thing. Now, I think that we might have one or two other things that.
We have to go in 5 minutes.
All right, okay. Max has got to be on the way. He's going to leave me, abandon me, and there's no all sorts of things that we should have here that aren't here. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Jubilee 1, Jubilee 2, Leslie's people. We had that. Let's go to like Lewis, shall we? Because
All right,
we do
well,
like
that's 5
Lewis.
minutes, so I'll say goodbye.
Okay.
All right. See ya.
All right. Bye, Max. Have a good day in your health farm or whatever. Right, the day that after the day that the Queen passed away, a very somber day indeed, and it is put into the background as Truss's first couple of days as Prime Minister, and her efforts to see whether she can crack the energy crisis, the cost of living crisis, the inflation crisis, the war crisis, the COVID crisis, the Brexit crisis, you name the crises that we're facing. Absolutely incredible. But we hope that we will get a view from America in a little while. We are having just absolutely, I can't tell you just how difficult the situation is because of the stupid password system that they've got. Just absolutely paranoid about passwords, and it's just causing us great grief this morning. Tremendous grief. It really is. And I have no idea why we have to put up with this. We have to put up with it because they're big boys and they can be bullies, and they are bullies. And it's just silly. Just absolutely silly. So I simply don't know. I don't know what to do. And that becomes very nonsensical. So there's. I noticed that since it's 9:33, and we feel very somber, very somber about the Queen's death. We can't actually go and laugh and poke fun and make idiots of ourselves on a day like today. But I noticed, I think that we have got the second episode of our documentary series, is The Bloody Past of a Tiny Town. So let's take 15 or 20 minutes to take a look at that, shall we?
Lovely scene, isn't it? Beautiful green grass, blackberry bushes surrounding the lawn. Peaceful. The chaps, gliding a bowling ball across the cropped turf. Couldn't be more pleasant. But this bowling green was originally the tilting ground for the castle. A bit like the local football club, Norman knights turned up regularly to practice cutting off ears, piercing armour with pike or sword. Or even more dramatically, they charged at one another with pointed lances, determined to knock an opponent to the ground, ready to perform the coup de grace, that last fatal plunge of the sword in the unguarded bit of flesh, the throat. Makes me feel quite faint. But the Knights of 1100 had to be honed to military perfection. Not only was there the odd disgruntled Saxon around, but even his own side could give the king a rough time. And indeed, they did. But before we go to another bloody incident on the Lewes High Street, let's stay with the tilting ground for a moment. In the 1700s, the soldiers, who had wielded their swords with such skill, discovered guns and started shooting one another. That more or less ended the fun of charging at one another with horses. And so this bit of real estate was up for grabs, and the local Crown bowlers seized the opportunity in 1751 and turned tilting into bowling. But this is Lewis, remember. Nothing is ever what it seems. The horses had ploughed up the ground a bit, so the surface wasn't even. You can see the bumps and ridges across the green. So the type of bowls played on this green was different to any played through the British Isles. And 500 years later, it still is.
It goes way back to medieval times, but so far as we're concerned here, we've been playing here since 1753, and there is some evidence to suggest that in the mid-1600s there was bowls played here. And we're reputed to be the oldest society, sporting society in the world. Very unique, and we're unique in many respects. I mean, firstly, the woods are unique in that most of them over 100 years old. They're lignum vitae, which is very, very hard wood, and that's the reason, of course, they've survived as long as they have. The jack is biased, which is very unusual, and the green is undulating, very undulating. There's not another green anywhere in this country so far as we know, and it makes for a very fascinating but unique game, one that we can't play any other club because there aren't any that play like this. We have a membership of 50 only or 55 now, because that's all the woods we have. They're handed down from person to person. We have a championship game in the summer because we have a competition throughout the year, which is within the club. And I think the winner of that is not only our own champion, but we can consider he's world champion. As long as we can retain the green, and I think we can retain the green, as long as we can do that, there's no reason why this society shouldn't continue ad infinitum almost. It's a great Lewis establishment.
So bowling in Lewis is completely unique. And very difficult. But back to blood and guts. In the last episode, I spoke of a battle between the king and some of his barons. The king, Henry III, held the castle. Now, as you can see, the castle pokes up into the sky quite a bit. The Motter is a man-made hill. And as you can see, a few hours of overtime were put in to build this pile of dirt. From the top, you can see in every direction for miles. Almost impossible to creep up without being noticed. And there was a moat to cross as well. But it's called Castle Ditch Lane, the name reflecting its purpose all those years ago. The king, rather unsportingly, had more men on his side than the barons. But it seems he fell asleep at the switch, and on that meadow over there, Simon de Montfort drew up his troops and joined battle. Fighting was fierce. After all, they'd all been on their own tilting greens, preparing for such a showdown as this. The battle was short and sharp, and the barons put the royal troops to flight. And they showed no mercy. The priory had been used as a staging post by the king's men, and they now took refuge there. It's little wonder that tilting grounds became bowling greens, because despite all that training, the king's men panicked. Screams of terror from both monks and soldiers echoed around the priory, as burning arrows thudded into thatched roofs, setting the priory buildings afire. Fighting spilled over to here, our beloved but bloody High Street. Soldiers were either massacred or crushed to death as they tried to get across the bridge over the River Ouse. For the king, it was a complete disaster.
Montfort, he split his armies up on the hills behind us in the chalk downs. He split his army into three forward not flanks, but bunches of men, groups. And they would have been around 1,500 people in them. So a lot of people. So he had 1,500 people. Then he kept men back for himself. So his left flank went off to Barkham and met Prince Edward, and they went off to Barkham. Prince Edward, being a hothead and chasing them all the way out to Barkham, away from the town, was one of the reasons the king's men lost. Because and they were mounted knights. And then the other two sets came into the town and were met by the king's army and Richard of Alamaine's army on sort of the hills around us, really, because where we are now would have been outside the town.
And it was a pretty bloody war.
It was dreadful. It was absolutely dreadful. It's hard to imagine. Lewes is a little place, and on the hills around Lewes, where most of the fighting was, there were tens of thousands of people trying to kill each other. And it was hand-to-hand close combat. And you didn't often die of wounds on the battlefield immediately. You were usually whacked with a broadsword and you would die of internal bleeding, or you would, have limbs severed and die slow death, or you would die death from infection, etc.
So there you go. Not quite one man, one vote, but some slight recognition that the divine right of kings isn't exactly what the Almighty had in mind. A spark of democracy was ignited, and it happened in Lewes. As usual, this is thirsty work, and I need to take a break. In fact, have a tipple, or perhaps go to the loos. Don't leave me, there's more blood and gore to come. Oh, Lewes, what a place! Lewes increased in importance as the Norman occupation took hold. Not that it wasn't important before that. In Saxon times, the town had 2 mints. And in case my pronunciation confuses you, those are places where coins were made, not a sweet that is eaten to try to disguise what you've been drinking. The now much larger cathedral town of Chichester only had 1 mint, which not only indicated the importance of Lewes, but started a sort of battle of popularity between the two places. The struggle for the rights to hold assizes, for example, created a tug of war that saw Chichester hold trials for a while, only for Lewes to get them back. Lewes won. The Crown Court and Lewes Assizes are still located in the modern town, and they ain't going nowhere. Mighty though the Norman castle was, it was dwarfed by the Cluniac Priory, just across this small valley. William de Warenne, who actually fought at the Battle of Hastings, was granted Lewes, along with lots of other goodies, as the spoils of war. His wife Gundrada, a religious lady, asked for and got a sponsorship to establish the priory, just 20 years after England was conquered. Henry VIII's chief vandal, Thomas Cromwell, pulled it down in 1547. Doing the bidding of the king who had fallen out with Rome over his love life. But the workmen of the 11th century were first-class masons, and some of these buildings have lasted to this day. Look at that, almost 1,000 years old. It wasn't just Henry and Thomas who were vandals. The good burghers of Lewes did their part over successive centuries, digging up the grounds and using the stones to build their garden sheds. By the time it was destroyed, the priory dominated the Lewes skyline. Its great church was immense, and the whole complex had its own hospital, dormitories, dining hall, and a wharf. Boats sailed up to the priory to carry and fetch goods. How times change. This river, the Winterbourne, carried ships and barges up to the docks in the priory. Nowadays, it would barely carry a paper boat. The priory was vitally important to the local economy, bringing in goods and attracting important visitors.
The ship would have actually come very near to the edge of where the tennis courts are. That's where, because you've got the Cockshoot river or stream which fed into the Ouse, and then yes, there would have been a wharf here from which they unloaded all the stones that they used to build the priory. Because what we see now is a lot of the infill. It's like the cavity walling of the priory. The outside, the dress stone, which is now used in places like Southover Grange, came from Carr on the Isle of Wight or from Caen, so it all had to be imported. It was a significant part of the town. It started small with only 4 monks, but over the course of about 400 or 500 years, the numbers swelled. The maximum number we had was probably about 100 monks. But the church, the big church that was built in the 14th century, was bigger than Chichester Cathedral. It was massive. It would have dominated the skyline in Lewes, so it was incredibly important. And it looked both ways. It looked inland because Lewes was the mother priory for other Cluniac monasteries in the UK, and it also looked towards Europe with its mother house in Cluny. We do a lot of education work with a whole range from tiny children up to adults to get them interested in different aspects of the priory. And the trustees of Lewes Priory Trust are very keen that it's always open and free access. And it's a beautiful place that everybody can come to. They can learn about the history, they can sit in our herb garden and contemplate. And we've just started a new kitchen garden which will grow vegetables. And again, this is for the community to get involved in. So it's very much based in the community of Lewes.
But there's nothing like a bit of competition to stir the blood of a true Lewesian. And sometime in the 15th century, a big fight is recorded between the bailiffs of the town and the prior's men in a local tavern. One of the 63 pubs that once existed in the town, no doubt. The town was walled in 1275, and a fat lot of good it did. When de Montfort's troops attacked, they swept into the town with no trouble. That then caused the town's nobility to strengthen them. They remained intact from then for some centuries, when they came down to the hammers of developers as the town grew. Entry to the town was by 3 gates, north, south and west, each now remembered through the name and a few remaining stones where the wall had been. The walls may have gone, and most of the priory. But many buildings in Lewes have stood the test of time and the vandalism of kings. This church was originally a hospice attached to the priory, and this was an early hospital from the same period. And Cromwell wasn't daft enough to pull down a Tudor manor which Henry had given as part of a divorce settlement. He kept Anne of Cleves' house for himself. Within the town walls, this building has more than stood the test of time. St Michael's was the original castle church, built about 1240. It's the parish church of the town and holds both church services and musical concerts today. There is a helmet and depiction of Sir Patrick Hamilton on one of the walls. Lewes is close to the coast and open to attack from French marauders, who regularly attacked the coast. On one occasion in the 16th century, ships sailed up the Ouse far enough for them to be spotted from inside the town. This noble knight depicted here was renowned for his courage in seeing them off. Later, revolutionary Tom Paine was married here before decamping to the Americas. And its spiral tower is one of the few surviving in the UK. Before we disappear into the folds of one of Lewis's hostelries, there's one more legacy from Henry's break with Rome. His successor Queen Mary wanted to restore the Roman Church to England, and she was very vicious towards dissenters. 17 people who refused to give up their beliefs or had read the Bible in English were seized and thrown into a dungeon in Lewes. In November 1545, they were marched up these stairs out to a stake and put in tar barrels. Burning to death in that way was a very horrible way to die. One more chapter in the bloody Lewes High Street saga. This act of savagery has not been lost in the mists of time, however. The 17 martyrs, as they're known, are remembered on November the 5th in the biggest bonfire ceremonies of any Guy Fawkes night in the world. 7 bonfire societies stage a joint procession through the town, torches blazing, effigies of Guy Fawkes and of so-called enemies of bonfire, those who have behaved badly in the year, pulled on carriages stuffed with fireworks. It's a colourful and impressive procession, but with an underlying commemoration of the 17 dead. The parade stops at the town's war memorial for the laying of wreaths to the fallen. Prayers are said. Banners extolling the names of the martyrs are held high. And rousers, or better known to us as bangers, are freely thrown around as the people march. It's a colourful parade. And I feel underdressed, with just one of my hats to show off. But bonfire, as it's known locally, is not the only memory of bloody Lewes. It suffered a far worse fate from a hidden foe. The Black Death. On Bloody Red to Deadly Black. Next episode, how rats destroyed a major port and brought more historical carnage to Lewes. Until then, a bloody goodbye. Poor old Lewes. I need a drink.
Mute this mic. Here we are, we're back, and the lovely Shannon just came in carrying pots and pots of milk. So plenty of coffee's being served here today. And I'm happy to say that it looks as if we are going to have not so much rain as we thought. but it's a somber day. It's a somber day in as much as we now have lost our Queen. The head of state, not symbolic, but not totally with huge power either, who has gone after 70 years at the helm. And I think that in some ways it came unexpectedly. She has been in some distress as far as health is concerned recently, but nothing to suggest that this was to be fatal. But she passed away. She slipped away peacefully, we're told, on yesterday. The family had gathered and were around her, and in the traditional, the protocol is the Queen. The Queen is dead. Long live the King. And so, even though his coronation will be a little way away just yet, we have a new king, a constitutional authority, a constitutional monarchy, and we have King Charles III, and he is yet to make any great protestation or announcement, but undoubtedly that will come. King Charles is not renowned for keeping his mouth shut about a good many things, so I'm quite sure that he'll be starting to carry on as monarch. Now, the good news is that we've established contact with Suzanne Mouchot, and that she will be joining us about 10 o'clock our time, and my reckoning. It is now 9:58, so we hope that we will be getting Suzanne in to get her view and give us some idea what indeed the Americans make of what's happened, what their view is, not just that one of our great tourist icons has disappeared, but just how they see it impacting on any relationships or whatever. Perhaps it's too early to say, but what we will do is we'll find out, because we'll either have Melissa Conti with us and Suzanne, perhaps both, but certainly we know now that we've got Suzanne coming up in a little while. So that's where we stand right now. The news headlines. There's no sense really in telling you what the front pages have reflected this morning, and that is the death of Queen Elizabeth II. And there is not a dissenting newspaper. There is nobody to suggest that in any way the mourning and the grief that we are expressing as a nation is anything other than genuine, and that it indeed we are able to say just how we held in such high esteem our head of state, Queen Elizabeth II. And now let's good morning, Melissa Conti. How are you?
Good morning, Keith. A sad day, certainly.
Indeed, a very sad day, and we've really, in many ways, been just trying to fill with nice platitudinous stuff until such time as we could get you, and hopefully Suzanne Mouchot is going to join us as well in a little while, to get the view from the United States. Although I think we're all shell-shocked here, and particularly since it occurred not only in her Jubilee year, but just as we were welcoming a new Prime Minister who has got all sorts of problems, all sorts of crises is to face. But I know that the news is very new. It may be that because of the time change that it hasn't really developed in the psyche of the Americans. But what so far has been the reaction?
Actually, we knew about it, you know, being in this business of broadcasting, we knew about it before it was actually broadcast. I do have some friends in the business, and they texted me right away that she was gone. And so we've been, and I have so many friends who have texted me. My cousin was crying. I mean, we really just have such an affinity for the Queen, and the fact that she's gone, it's very sad here too. I mean, we really are feeling the sadness. And I could just imagine what's going on over there with you.
Yes, I mean, it is akin to the Diana phenomenon, flowers beginning to pile up at Buckingham Palace and at Balmoral, which is where the Queen is at right now. When she died, she was not in Buckhouse. So it is patently demonstrable that we are terribly upset. And the newspapers this morning, is most of them didn't even have a headline. They just showed a picture. They seemed to split between a painting of Queen Elizabeth in 1953 when she ascended to the throne through the coronation, and one when she was, my guess would be about late 60s, early 70s, which shows her in a really a very, very nice light. But basically, it's goodbye and thank you, and we are going to miss you. But have you had any chance to think that what, if any, might be the political ramifications, Melissa?
Well, I mean, the Queen to us was almost like a grandmother, and I'm sure she came across that. Well, I mean, she didn't take nonsense either. She was a strong woman. Political. Well, I don't know that. I mean, perhaps our president may have taken a more gentler view of her, and maybe not so much Queen Charles, Queen, goodness, King Charles. It's hard for me to even say that, to be quite honest. A king that is just, we're so used to you having a queen.
Yes,
You
yes.
have a king. It's just,
Well, indeed we do. We are now back to being a kingdom, and is Charles, of course, has been around for a long time, waiting for this moment, and he is in many ways an untried entity. We all know that the Charles who keeps us entertained frustrates us, and so on. And in fact, he has taken some pretty firm stances on environment and the architecture and so on and so forth. But we don't really know how he views his role as king. The Queen made it quite clear that she understood that she was the head of a constitutional monarchy. As such, she had certain powers, but they were limited because they devolved to the people through the Houses of Parliament. But generally speaking, she made it work. And much as countries which have a elected or appointed president for a certain period of time, she, of course, was for a lifetime. And so will Charles be, unless anything dramatic happens in the next little while. I'm quite sure the Republicans are licking their lips and thinking, aha, now's a chance for us to impose our own ideas on governance. I don't think so. I think a constitutional monarchy is a great form of government, and I don't think that any sensible person wants to get rid of it. But yes, you're quite right. So is there any view on King Charles?
well, I'll be honest. I don't think this is favorable of view of King Charles as there was of Queen Elizabeth. But I mean, she entered the monarchy in a very she became queen very young, and she really just blossomed and grew into it. He's just walking into it at a very much older age. So we'll see how long it takes for him to really sit well with the role. I mean, his past, he's got some past problems certainly, and I don't think people don't forget. They loved Diana, and they just haven't forgotten. I'm sure the sentiment's probably the same in the UK. People look at it and they're like, oh, King Charles, okay, we'll have to endure it until William comes in. That's really the view here.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is an element of that. People obviously live longer today. I don't think that Charles is actually going to last for a 70-year reign, because he's in his 70s now when he ascends to the throne. But one of the things, of course, that will happen is after the period of mourning is over, we'll have a state funeral. And I understand. I mean, I'm only going on rumor now, but I understand that it is planned that this will be one of the great funerals of all time, because of the esteem in which the Queen was held, and that many millions will want to say goodbye, and therefore it is going to be an occasion of, if I can use the word, splendor. Then shortly after that, of course, we will then have a coronation. And we haven't had a coronation since 1953. So I would imagine that whether you're a Charles supporter or not, that is going to get everybody excited.
Right, I agree. I mean, I guess we have to give him a chance to see how he becomes accustomed to the role. And I don't want to disparage him, at this. Certainly, I mean, he's in, very deep grief right now. So, but I guess we all, I mean, many of the residents of the UK and the citizens of the UK have only known a queen. So
Indeed. I mean, I was, 13, I think, 13 or 14. Yeah, 13. When, in fact, I passed from living under a king to living under a queen. Actually, Max was in a little earlier, and he said, "Do you realize, Keith, that you've lived under 3 different monarchs?" And indeed, I have now, because I was well out of my well into my teens and out of my young age, as it were, when King George VI died and Queen Elizabeth ascended to the throne. And now, of course, as I've lasted long enough, oh, God help the world, to see the reign of King Charles III begin. So I've lived under 3 monarchs. But one of the things that I think that I wonder about all the time is people sort of look at our monarch as if he's rather quaint, and how nice, and they live in a big palace. But why are they there? Because they've got guards with bearskin hats that tourists can come and gaze at through the railings. But of course, we are a constitutional monarchy. And as a constitutional monarchy, the monarch plays a very, very important role. And the quality of the monarch will be very important to us. But I think, and there is some suggestion that Joe Biden, despite the fact that, like a lot of people, and excuse me for having a go at your Irish background, but a lot of Americans with Irish heritage see that the Brits as having dumped on the Irish and given them a very, very bad time. And so therefore, they don't see us very kindly. So the special relationship with somebody like Biden, who's got a bit of Irish in him, is everybody looks skeptically, is he going to keep it?
I don't know that Irish Americans, certainly I'm like a 3rd generation. I don't think that we're that really politically involved with Ireland. It's been relatively quiet for us now. That may change in the future, but I don't think we have that strong view. I think I mean, the enthusiasm during the Jubilee celebrations in America, Americans were just enraptured on, watching television, seeing all the celebrations. There were a lot of Americans at the Jubilee. I just happened to be in the UK at the time, and it was just a lovely celebration. As an Italian, I'm Italian Irish. I don't really have any very strong views. Now there may be some in the country who do, but I really, it's not something I
Oh, but a
follow.
combination of Italian and Irish should give you a lot of background. Now, hang on a moment, because we've got. I love that. I just love it when I'm surrounded by beautiful ladies. So here's the next one.
Hey,
Suzanne Michaud.
Melissa. Hi, Keith.
Hi, Suzanne. We've been chasing you for a week. Do you know that? You've been like
Yeah,
a
I
blue
forgot
eyes
to
fly
tell you
again.
Monday was Labor Day in the States. I forgot to tell you, so I wasn't even here. So I'm sorry. That was my fault.
A holiday. A holiday.
It's a
Oh,
holiday. I forgot to tell you.
Imagine that.
So sorry about
Wow.
that. I missed you guys
Well, we missed
as
you.
I was on the beach.
I got berated because everybody thought I'd sacked you.
Oh, really? Oh, that's
Yes.
funny.
Yes, I got a nasty note saying, Keith, it's better that you go than Suzanne does.
I don't know about that, but that's very sweet. I'm back. I'm back, and it's fall, and the world is a different place today, right?
Well, it is indeed. I mean, we've not only lost our monarch, our head of state, but also, of course, our new prime minister is only 2 days into her session, or whatever we want to call it. And she is very new to the job. And in some ways, she has lost an old hand, because the Queen was very, very knowledgeable about governance, and steered quite a few prime ministers through their early days as prime minister. So very sad for her. But I was asking Melissa about the impact that this has had on the States, and she's given us a little view. What's your view?
Well, first, I think it's amazing that one of the last things that she did was actually, I guess, empower a new female prime minister. I think that's a pretty amazing thing to do before she leaves the earth. I always find that people kind of, get their things squared away before they leave the earth. But I mean, how does it impact the United States? Well, I came home from work. I had a crazy work day yesterday, and I said to the kids, I said, did you talk about the Queen today at school? And they said, yes, we did. And I mean, Melissa knows this. I mean, it isn't often spoken about in American schools, that. So it was good to hear that there was discussion about it, and the fact that she spans so many presidents, so many world leaders. I mean, the war. I mean, it's just incredible what she
Absolutely.
did. I mean. So it was good that there was those conversations taking place, but we're definitely aware that, there's a tremor on the earth, somebody who was a constant for so many years, I mean, it's hard to believe. But I think, the United States, we did kind of start the country because of your monarchy. So I don't know if we're, that committed to its importance necessarily, but there's always that reverence for someone who's done so much for so many years,
Now, I should tell you that the lady who actually in the configuration is above you on my screen, but who is with us, Melissa, is she was over here a couple of months ago. And she actually went and I'm not sure whether she actually had a meal in or just went in to a room which the Queen used fairly frequently until she became ill, as her private dining room.
Wow. Go Melissa.
Yeah.
How did you arrange that? Or is that something that people do? I don't know.
No, it's when you come to London, we will take you to the same room. But I would guess that less than 0.0001% of people who come as tourists or whatever get into this place, to get into that room.
It will be lovely to have you there, Suzanne.
Yeah,
Wow.
and it is a beautiful, beautiful room, a beautiful room. But the secretary of the organization that where this room is, once told me the Queen Mother liked it a great deal, and that's how the Queen discovered it, to have her own personal parties and lunches and so on. And the first time that she came in and took a look, she looked around and she said, "Oh, I do see why Mummy loved this room so much." So very down to earth.
That's lovely. Well,
yeah.
can we have champagne too in the room?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, all right.
Oh yes.
Melissa has been there, so she knows that this is a place of very graceful living indeed. The only thing that sometimes gets Americans riled up, including your ambassador, is because it's a male only. I mean, anybody can go in, but only males can be members. So it becomes controversial. But you know why the government will not legislate that it should let lady members?
No, why?
Well, you know who objects the most?
Women.
They're all female.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if they did it to let women into the men's clubs, they've then got to make it so that that men are allowed into the women's clubs, and the women are not having it.
I know. It's kind of like when you go out, you know, when we were younger and we go out to bars and they would always, all the bouncers would let the women in, but not the guy.
Oh, yes, I remember those days.
Same kind of thing. It's like, we don't want those things to change. We don't want to wait online at the bars.
Yeah, but somehow the big man on campus always managed to get in there.
Oh yeah, well they would let certain select gentlemen in, or gentlemen. I use that word loosely, but
right. Okay. Now, is up until yesterday, really. I mean, we all knew, I think, on Wednesday that the Queen was ill. Strangely enough, I am pretty good at guessing things when I see the signs. I got it totally wrong on this because I said I thought that the family were just gathering to give her some moral support because of age.
When they rushed over there, I knew it was within minutes. They rushed them over there, all of them.
Yeah,
So,
well, over there, of course, is Scotland. So it took a little time to get up there. But is up until Wednesday is all seemed well in the garden. Okay, she because of health reasons, she hadn't travelled down to London to accept the resignation of Prime Minister Boris and to allow the reign of Liz Truss to begin. But I mean, that wasn't necessarily an alarm call. So we were leading a fairly ordinary life up until, say, Tuesday evening, Wednesday morning. So let's go back to those days, and you two tell me what was going on in the States. What were you doing? And you snuck Labor Day by me. I love to celebrate these things with you, and you buggered off somewhere into the desert or something. I missed Labor Day in the States. I've got to wait a whole year now to enjoy it again. I hope you realize the devastation that you brought into my life.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, no, I definitely will never do that again. Had I known how important Labor Day was to you, I would have definitely.
Oh, every American holiday is. Oh.
Although this Labor Day, we didn't do any fireworks. I see all the fireworks behind me.
it was quiet.
Yeah, it was a quiet. I was at the beach. That was nice, but it was actually a beautiful day. It was a gorgeous day. So, you know what I did see? I saw schools of dolphin while I was on the beach. And you know when dolphin usually they just kind of float by and you're like, oh my gosh, everybody like runs to the beach and sees them. And then they kind of take off. These stayed in front of us for hours. And there were, I don't know, 40 of them. It was amazing. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. So that was kind of a nice way of ringing in the new academic year. So now, and I'm teaching my first class at 9 a.m.
Isn't
that crazy? Yeah, I'm going to be a professor this semester.
Awesome.
Actually, Melissa, I understand. I mean, this is purely opinion. You don't have to sort of worry about whether you're giving the right answer. But I understand that there is a certain affinity between dolphins and humans, and that in fact we do have a much better chance of communicating with dolphins than we do with any other mammal in the sea. Do you understand that?
Yes, I'm not a dolphins expert, but I do have I think they're adorable, and yes, there is I have a friend actually who was a trainer at SeaWorld in Florida, and she trained dolphins, and yeah, there's such a close bond. There can develop such a close bond, and it's quite amazing. They're really quite intelligent. So yeah, like I said, I'm not an expert in dolphins, so I was a little surprised by the question, but I quite like them. It's not exactly an intellectual answer.
Yeah.
I really like dolphins, but yeah.
Well, the reason I've asked you, and I'll ask Suzanne the same thing, is quite often we go through life with things that are said, but we never understand why they're said. And I've always understood that there's this affinity between dolphins and humans. And I have no idea whatsoever why I think that. So I thought, I wonder if you think it as well, whether it's something that is sort of common to everyday folk. Well, I mean, I'm an everyday folk. You two are exceptional. But what do you think, Suzanne?
Well, I think
What's your opinion on dolphins, Suzanne?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's so many stories of dolphin helping people in the water, you know, in distress, and just intuitively knowing what they need. So that's probably where that comes from. And I'm a huge fan. I don't know if you've ever heard of the story of Winter the dolphin who lost his tail.
Oh no! Yeah. What's that story?
Yes,
story about Flipper. Oh no.
Her name was Winter, and she was found on the beach in Clearwater, Florida, and she was injured, and she was brought to a rescue in Clearwater. That was a struggling rescue kind of hospital. And she ultimately had to lose her tail because it was so damaged. And then she was swimming without a tail, and then that caused spinal problems. So then the story is that there was a prosthetic made specifically and for the first time for this dolphin. So she had a prosthetic tail. You don't know this story? Oh my gosh, I watched it and I cried.
No, it's a wonderful story. Wonderful story. Now, you're passing on this morning that story to a whole generation of people that have never heard it. So carry on.
Well, I have to recommend the movie. I mean, the movie is fantastic. There's 2 movies about Winter. And my kids know that I'm such a ham for these stories that my daughter was in Florida for her school class trip, and she brought me back this stuffed dolphin that we call Summer because dolphin, you know, so. But yes. Yeah, I think what? Yeah.
I think that I don't know if you remember the show Flipper. You might be too young, but this was like in the 1960s, and I think that's a lot of where our fascination, certainly, or maybe our realization started. Well, even it started back when Roman times. Romans were very much revered dolphins. They were considered kind of a symbol of love. So nice. I like dolphins. But anyway, so yeah, you don't remember does anyone remember the show Flipper?
I do.
Yes, I remember it.
Yeah, it was a cheesy 1960s series that it was, and there was a dolphin named Flipper, and he was always saving people, and he was the hero.
Yeah, you see, it's part of our culture for sure.
I have to watch the movie Winter. I'm gonna have to watch it.
Yes. If I'm not mistaken,
it's called Dolphin Tail.
Yeah, the opening credits.
Oh, that's.
The opening credits of Flipper showed the dolphin leaping up near a pier. It would leap out of the water, and that was the way that program was introduced.
And they were always laughing. He was always laughing.
That was very good, Melissa. I don't think I can do that.
On Mirador imitating a dolphin. It's a good life.
That's awesome.
Well, you know, from time to time, I like to change the logo. So perhaps what we start to think about is a dolphin.
Okay.
Why not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I heard a great thing. Do you know a realtor named Ryan Serhant? Have you heard about him? He
I've
was
heard.
on like $1 Million whatever, $1 Million
Yeah.
listing. He did a talk to a group of people and said, stop wearing other people's logos. You are your brand. Go make yourself t-shirts with your name on it and wear
Yes.
them every day. And I
Yes.
said, this guy's got something here. I am going to go make Suzanne Musho t-shirts. So
There you
anyway,
go.
I will show you my logo soon. I'm still coming up with it.
Oh yes, please.
Well,
Now
Suzanne,
there are a number of things that you promised to show us, and you start to remember and turn up with them.
Right. I know I have all of these photos that you want, right? I do have some of them, so I'll send them to you over the weekend.
Ah,
but
great.
I agree with Suzanne on this point. Like, I'm not a walking billboard for your company. If you would like to pay me, and like if Chanel would love to pay me, I have no problem going out with a Chanel bag.
Yes.
But I don't like labels on my clothing. I really honestly don't. I think it's almost oh gosh. It's just phony. It's, oh, look at me, I'm better than you because I just happen to be carrying a Chanel bag. But like I said, if Chanel out there, anyone representative from Chanel would like to pay me to wear their clothing, like Michael Kors or Valentino, in some ways,
the word is out. The word is out. Melissa's willing to wear Chanel.
I'm willing to do it for the money.
Art.
I would be willing.
You heard it here first.
A Keith Hayes T-shirt if you pay me, Keith.
Right. Okay. But you know that occasionally I end programs with a picture of my trilby hat and my walking stick.
I'm not going to wear your hat. I'm sorry.
Just well, you don't have to because suddenly Harrison Ford saw an episode of our show and put his hat up for auction, which is like this, on the social media at $150,000 starting price. So actually, this hat is on the social media at $150,000 plus one. Anybody who wants to buy it, there you go. Not only that, I shall give you two girls a tip. $5 a piece if I sell it.
Actually, I can see you as the next Indiana Jones, Keith.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
well, actually, I do have a certain practical side to me, and the scene in Indiana Jones that I loved was where he finds himself in the Casbah or wherever, and there is somebody in a veil and so on, and waves a sword like this and comes towards him, and he just takes out his gun and shoots him. Direct action.
Yes, yeah, he kind of knew what was happening there, right? He's like, no.
I am thoroughly enjoying this little conversation of trivia because I think that it's appropriate. I don't want to talk about anything terribly serious because the whole day is so serious. So our little chatter about dolphins and hats and all sorts of things is very appropriate, I think, and it's just delightful. And I hope that people are enjoying some of the silly things that we get up to as broadcasters and architects and all the things that we are. Right. Okay. So tell me what you did on Labor Day. I know that you buggered off out of town, but what did you do actually out of town?
We were at the beach. We went pretty early actually, and then came back relatively early and had lunch. It's very exciting. Had lunch. We didn't have a cookout. Did you have a cookout, Melissa? That's the normal Labor Day.
Well, we did. I went to some friends, and they are always barbecuing. So they put on my Impossible Burger. So it's really quite good on the grill. And so yeah, it was just nice to be with family and friends. It was very, very nice. And then my son came back from Florida, and I went to pick him up from White Plains Airport. And there you go. We just had a really nice. It just was a nice wrap up of the day, and we just had a nice because he was away for about a month. He went to see the well, it was they were going to launch the Artemis rocket.
Yeah.
But unfortunately there was a leak, so they weren't able to launch. But he got to be up very close to the rocket, and he's actually going to be entering the Navy next year as a pilot, and very much would like to work for NASA or SpaceX, in the future. So he was so excited. And the photos! I should have shared the photos with you, Keith. He was actually going to join us, but he was up very, very late last night. So I'm suspecting he's not going to wake up in time.
Naughty boy, yeah. Tell me, Melissa, you say friends and family. Was this another one of the famous Conti get-togethers?
Well, it was a get-together at my cousin's home, and her home looks like a spa. I call it the Lucina Spa. It absolutely beautiful, but she just loves, beautiful things, and she's an executive at KPMG, so she's not going to afford it, but so it's just always beautiful, and she's such a gracious host, and it was just lovely to be there, and martinis and hot tub, and it was really nice. So
it
Too
was
shabby.
It was a different Conti get together.
When I come back, Suzanne, I come back to my apartment. I'm like, okay, this is all I've got to change. I have to upgrade everything.
Yeah. Well, from time to time, I actually get photographs that I've forgotten. They're stuck in a book or whatever, and I look at some of the massive houses that I've lived in over the years, and now I've ended up in a little studio flat because it's so easy to look after, particularly since I'm out with the television all day. And I think, how are the mighty fallen? But then I think, if I was back in a sort of 5-bedroom huge palace or whatever, what the hell would I do with them? I'd have 4 bedrooms that were never used.
There are a lot. She has a lot of bedrooms, and they're empty, and it's a huge responsibility. Sometimes I'll go over and I'll look around, and I'm like, oh, if I had to take care of all this, I would just go insane. Because I'm a minimalist, so I like things to be simple, and it's beautiful. I do appreciate it, but huge responsibility.
Yes, yeah, I don't have that problem here either, Keith. I mean, we have a 2-bedroom apartment raising 3 kids. we just fit. In fact, when we dropped our daughter off to college, David and I were like, gee, this is pretty nice. Maybe we should just all stay here.
But you're in what the real estate people would call a prime position, aren't you? I mean, you're bang in the center of New York, and is it on the Hudson River?
We're on the East River, and we have a view of the Freedom Tower downtown, and it's a nice apartment.
Great location. And honestly, I lived in a 1-bedroom with my father and my son, and it was lovely. We had a wonderful time, and it was easy to take care of. It wasn't, there wasn't a huge responsibility involved in it, and so then the cost was not as great.
Let me tell the viewers that here you've got 3 people all saying how poor and poverty-stricken we are, and yet whenever we get together, it's always martinis to the fore.
That's right. Just proves. Yeah. Is that what you're drinking? Melissa has. I have tea, but I guess Melissa has vodka.
I have coffee. Martinis. Yeah, it's funny. We had martinis, and there was a little 1-year-old, and he just wanted the martini so badly. So we filled up a little martini glass with pineapple juice, and he was so happy. He joined us in the toast. Very cute.
You came back. I mean, you very casually said, "I had lunch," but your lunches are always quite exotic, Suzanne.
Yeah, this would not count as an exotic lunch. I think we had tuna sandwiches.
Well, that's not bad. That's not bad.
Not bad, But it really, the beach day was beautiful. It actually, when Labor Day rolls around, you kind of do feel like you're going into the fall, but not now. I mean, I feel like it's still a beautiful summer summer moment. So I don't know if that's probably a comment about climate change or something, but it was really beautiful. So now the beach club closes this weekend. We have to get all of our stuff out of the beach club, which is a
Oh
sad
dear.
moment.
Oh, that's always a little
Yeah.
bit.
Well,
But
well,
autumn here is so beautiful. So we have that to look forward to.
Yes,
Apple
we do.
picking,
That's
and
true.
it's
yeah.
really
Autumn in America is absolute magic.
yeah.
Actually, strangely enough, I don't know why that the seasons do tend to change. It's starting to return here in Britain as well. We seem to lose any definition between, summer just segued into autumn and autumn into winter without, noticing the change. But that's coming back now. A season of mists and mellow fruitfulness. We're getting little fogs and mists, and the trees are changing color. And we're getting conkers on the ground again, and you can shuffle through leaves. All the things I did as a kid, and then it seemed to be lost, but they're coming back. So climate change, whatever it's doing, is doing us a favor here and there. Wonderful
Yeah, that
stuff.
was also the respite during the pandemic, right? You could hear all the birds again, and all of the wildlife was coming back out.
You had all the cars on the road. It was very nice.
Yeah.
Yes.
I did work late. I think it was Wednesday night. And when I left the office, because one of my campuses is in the country. I mean, it's like in Old Westbury, Long Island, and it's still very wooded. And so I left the office at almost 9:00. It was pitch black, because I was like, oh, obviously the sun goes down early right now. And it was pitch black out. And it sounded like there were a million frogs, a million cicadas, a million birds, like literally right when the door opened. I was like, what is that? I closed it. I'm like, I felt like they were coming at me. It was such a, kind of like, whoa, it was a complete assault of the senses there. So
yes. Actually, there's nothing like a still night with you call them cicadas, but we call them crickets, and you hear the chirp, chirp, chirp throughout the night. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful sound. But I have to tell you that yesterday we had the biggest downpour after we've had a summer similar to yours. Lots of sun and dry days and so on. But yesterday we got it back in spades. There was lots of lightning overnight. And when I actually left my apartment to come into the White Hart Hotel, I was drowned, absolutely drowned. And I had to take my socks off and my shoes. And I sat here with bare feet. But Max was in and he said, oh, yes, it was dreadful, wasn't it? And I said, yes, I got my trousers drenched as well. I'll be damned if I'm taking them off.
This is quite the show. I mean, dolphins, it's amazing.
Well, I would have, but we'd have needed a banner warning.
I must say, I did get a bit triggered at that moment.
This week and last week, people are coming back to the university. And some people I've only met on Zoom, because I started right before the pandemic. So I haven't really met any of these people. So people are like, oh my gosh, Suzanne, you have shoulders and like a chest, And I'm like, yeah, and I'm wearing pants, And no one thought that was funny. I was like, they thought that was a little off color. I was like, oh, come on. We were all like wearing shorts and these, I guess they thought I meant like completely naked, but I didn't mean that. I just meant I don't know.
Oh, folks,
well, if I actually,
shall we?
Yes, if I can actually bend your ear, where that actually happened to me when I was working in Northern Ireland, it's for some reason I always seem to pull Christmas Day. And it was time to actually go and do Christmas morning newscasting. And I grabbed a pair of trousers and put them on, not being aware that my wife had been tacking them. I got into the news booth at Ulster Television, sat down, and immediately my trousers split and fell down around my ankles. And I spent the day reading the news with my trousers around my ankles, and nobody knew.
That's hilarious. That must have been uncomfortable. I mean, you're quite the newsman, being able to deal with that situation and still deliver a show.
Did she have any pins in the pants?
Yes, but I must have pulled them out. Okay, now what is I was just the other day, well, yesterday, mulling over, some of the events that we've got to look forward to on Mirador, the things that we should pay attention to, and I think that the next one is probably Halloween. And we pay much more attention to Halloween now than we ever used to. It's really becoming quite a popular celebration. But then, of course, we've got November the 5th, which is probably the biggest celebration of bonfire anywhere in the world. Followed by late night shopping, where the local shops stay open until 10 o'clock at night to give people a chance to buy their Christmas goods. And they have bands in the street and that sort of thing, taking us up to Christmas Day. So what have you got as events to look forward to?
Well, go ahead, Melissa.
Halloween. I mean, we're going to have a show, Suzanne, like this, and dress up. So
that would be fun.
I think that's absolutely right.
Right. I'll come as Marie Antoinette.
Oh, hey, very nice. I haven't decided yet. Maybe dolphin. I don't know. I'm thinking.
Well, actually, if we do decide to do that, and we talk seriously about it, I would be quite happy for Mirador to do an extra program where we would go on the air at, say, 5 o'clock in the afternoon here. Good morning. So that it would be a reasonable time for you, sort of midday or whatever. So think about that.
All right. Yeah. No, and then we could all be our characters, and you could interview us.
Absolutely.
Cool. Yeah. So you should be Marilyn Monroe, Melissa.
Okay. Oh, I'm excited. I'll have to put some extra stuffing.
Yeah. I mean, wasn't one of her great movies Gentlemen Prefer Blondes?
I think so, right?
Yes.
And I actually just saw this scene from Some Like It Hot. I was flipping through the channels and Some Like It Hot came on, and literally the scene where the train was blowing the air up, and that's a hilarious scene.
Absolutely, yeah. That was Jack Lemmon with her, wasn't it?
I think it was, right? And then he was hilarious, because then they go back to his apartment and he's completely thinking that she's in love with him, and she's there like thinking, how do I get air conditioning in my apartment? I mean, it was a really funny scene.
Yes. Something of a tragic figure, though.
Yes. Yeah. And she actually took acting classes with Jane Fonda. Did you hear about that? They were actually in acting class together. And Jane Fonda explains that she completely had no confidence, Marilyn Monroe, and that she would go to this class and she wouldn't say a word, but she would come every day, and she would sit there and she would not volunteer to act, or and talked about how she just didn't have any talent and all this. I mean, just crazy.
Yeah, she has so much self-hatred, and it's certainly in her love life. She never thought she was good enough for the men she was with. And it's so sad. I mean, because we all just looked at her in a very different light. We just can't imagine she would think that of herself. So.
Yeah. I mean, it is sad, isn't it?
Yeah.
But did you say she was with Jane Fonda?
Yeah, Jane Fonda, right? Jane Fonda is actually how old? She's pretty, like, she's in, let's see how old she is. You know how I learned that? I was listening to Howard Stern. Howard Stern was interviewing Jane Fonda. Howard Stern has great interviews, if you ever.
He does. He's funny. Yeah. He is. I know he's controversial. I get it, but he does. He will make me laugh.
Yeah. Well, who wants a dull interviewer? Controversy is the name of the game.
Oh, you don't listen to Howard Stern, do you, Keith?
But actually, if you really want a belly laugh from time to time, you should watch Mirador on a Wednesday, which is our energy day, and we've got Stuart, who is an ex-FT journalist and was in Vietnam and so on. Talking the devil, he's just walked through the door. And Max.
Hello. Where is he?
Max, who is an 18-year-old, and full of confidence, but hasn't been anywhere and done anything, but full of opinion. And the two of them are the best television that you've ever seen. It's Melissa saying hello to you, Stuart.
Last Friday when I was on, Stuart was on discussing oil prices and oil executive bonuses and salaries and things of that nature. And at that very moment, my cat decided to walk in front of me with his tail in my face. So
yes,
my apologies, Stuart.
I remember that. Is the old man is going to sit down? Because
if there's any more of this you're going to get bonked over the head, okay? a bit more respect from you, little boy. No, actually, it's extraordinary times.
My cat is
no news at all at the moment because the Queen is starting. What's happened now is that the rather silly this trust has said she is going to freeze the energy cap at a certain price because the people were facing an increase of 80% on October 1. And the thing is, that would have meant huge fuel points for other people. So what she's going to do is go halfway between the existing one, which is 1,941, and that one, 3.8, and get an energy cap of 2,500. But put together with that, together with the £400 that Rishi Sunak said we're all going to get, that takes it down to 2,001, and then they're going to reduce VAT. So all of us are going to have a cap of 2,000 frozen for 2 years. And you know what the cost of that's going to be, because they've now included businesses. It's going to cost, to do that, it's going to cost £150 billion. Say it again,
Which you'll all pay for later.
Who's going to pay for that, right?
You will.
No, the money is being used basically to actually compensate the fuel company, the energy companies, the big cartel, basically, for when they have lost. So the money will go to them, and how are we going to get it back? They say we're going to get it back from taxes. Well, this trust is actually says she's going to reduce taxes. But all of a sudden, she's piled up the pile of date of 1,500. And first of all, that benefits the fuel energy companies, but not the people.
Hell.
And then she talks about the whole strategy of energy and fuel, where she's going to actually have a strategy where she's going to include nuclear, and for God's sake, fracking. Well, let's take a look at nuclear first. Fact is that silly Boris said he wants to have 8 new nuclear plants. They come in at 21 million a throw, so that gives you another 1,600 billion pounds, right? Okay, and then as for fracking, it's only if the local communities will agree. Well, they won't agree. I can tell you that for sure. So let's put that up. We've got 1/6 there. That's 3, 4, 2, 500 billion pounds. We are going to go bankrupt at that flipping rate. No wonder the markets are saying the pound is down to its lowest levels was 1985. So
well, I'll have to pay my second instalment on Monday. I don't have that enough in the bank to pay that today.
What? You're 500 pounds. Absolutely not, no.
Right, just to maintain the light-hearted view that we've had of this morning because of the seriousness of the other. Here's our comment on the energy. Well done, the energy companies. They're full of bright ideas to help their customers. Now they've made power so expensive that for an average house such as this, you can't afford to heat it. So you don't need appliances such as this. But that means you also don't need a fridge, because you can keep your groceries cool and fresh without it. The house is cold enough. Well done, chaps.
In the supermarket the other
I
day,
like that.
buying 5 hot water bottles.
Bottles.
You'll be all right.
Yes. I should say that you know that I have a penchant for beautiful ladies. Is ugly old buggers like him can actually stay out. But last night he actually interviewed a very interesting lady who happened to be his stepdaughter, your stepdaughter, and a cracker of an interview it is. It went out live, so you should be able to find it. And she is a charming lady, and she's a talented lady, and she said, you know, I'm going to come up and see him about once every 2 or 3 months. So we've said she's got some experience of television, so we're going to ask her to become a guest presenter from time to time. So you see, all sorts of wonderful things come out of his doing.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yes, very good.
The whole
I look
idea
forward to more,
of Mirador is
I
that
look
it's
forward to
sort
more
of free
discussions
flow.
about energy
Sorry?
with you. I have my own opinions. I won't voice them now.
Right. About energy.
Mm-hmm. Well, I have
Uh-huh.
opinions about almost everything, really.
Right.
Except
Well,
for the
you
Dolphins. I was a bit tongue-tied with the Dolphins.
yeah,
I didn't quite
you better
expect
come
that.
on the Wednesday when these two are hammering away at energy, because they talk about nothing else for the whole program.
Well, no,
but
we do. We talk about these. You know, he's to the right of Genghis Khan and his political. And I keep saying, no, Genghis, can you please tell me? I said, you know, all these bigots in the Conservative Party. And he said, they're not bigots. I said, yes, they are. Get yourself a dictionary, boy. Anyway, I said, how many people do you know? He said, oh, well, there's 5 in the family. And I said, yeah, but how many Conservative voters do you know? And he said, 20. So I said, well, that's not really a fair sample, is it? 20.
they're actually a class comic act, the two of them.
And then he says, I'd love to meet Noel Farage. Well, I said, you wouldn't want to bother with him. He's actually just a saloon bar, an incredible bar. Actually, he'll get bunged out one of these days. He's so boring. Oh, dear.
Right.
Anyway, I must go.
Okay, good to see you.
Yeah.
And I knew that you would want to say hello to Melissa.
Yeah. Bye, Melissa.
Hi.
And you met Suzanne before, haven't you?
Yes, I have.
I think so. Yeah. Hi. Good to see you.
Right. Okay. Now, we were at tuna sandwiches, I think. So actually, what we saw is dolphins romping in the sea, and
Yes.
then we were eating tuna sandwiches.
And then I was eating, yes. And then I was having my
Oh.
beer.
Talk about schizophrenia.
It was a perfect day. A perfect day. Dolphins, tuna sandwiches, sun, surf.
Quite seriously, though, is Labor Day is a sort of a day of change in the States, isn't it? It's when people lock up their summer cabins and leave the lake and so on, and come back from what must be an idyllic summer for many people. I mean, they just go down to the lake and they stay there.
Yeah, no, I think it's such a, I don't know, it's going to change the whole sort of vibe, you know, as you go into the fall. It's, you know, it's no more kind of lazy weekends. Like the kids are back in school, so everything's so serious, and
Right.
I don't know. It really does tell me that I think I belong on the beach.
How about you, Melissa?
I had just come back from Italy, and now I have to go. I mean, we're all sort of going. I've been back at work, but now a lot of companies in America are mandating you need to come back, at least hybrid. And I've already been doing that. It's been so nice and quiet. Now it's not going to be so nice and quiet. So I have to pick those days when everybody's not, you know, everybody's home. Big Mondays, Thursdays, and Fridays, I go in because it's quiet.
Yeah.
And I love my colleagues. It's not like I don't love my colleagues, but sometimes hard to get work done.
No, it's true. And, you know, I've been in a building on my campus basically alone for 2 years. I mean, honestly, like nobody would come. And I was there because I was considered essential. So I was there every day since April 2020. Now people are coming back, and I honestly, it is such an adjustment. Like people are just coming into my office. I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah, I need quiet. Yeah,
I
it's
know.
true.
I had forgotten that people actually come into your office. It's so funny.
Well, it is. I have to say that the two of you had better make sure that in your diaries that Mirador is well up the list. I have to say thank you to the two of you, because you've been very loyal over the last 3 or 4 months, and you're a breath of fresh air. Everybody loves seeing you chatting and either telling us your experiences about day-to-day life in America or your views on what's happening in the world. But we as you know, we had a very, very bad time during lockdown. And this was an experiment, coming into the White Hart Hotel and just opening everything up so that people can walk through the middle of the set, as it were, and have a chat. And we say good morning and so on. It is now settling down. And I'm happy to say that the format is, we're showing a considerable growth. It's not spectacular. It's not going like that, but it's growing like this. So now that we've found that formula, we intend to keep it. So you girls had better make sure that you're available.
I promise.
I'm available.
Yeah.
Friday's like, it's like, oh, Keith starts off the weekend. Party time.
Yeah, you'll be telling your people in your office, Melissa, is I don't want to come at all on a Friday. I get my day started by going to the UK every morning, and after that, I don't want to just come in and be bothered.
That's right.
No one's there on Friday to tell that to.
Yeah, exactly. No one would know if you were there or not.
Well, the CCTV cameras don't lie, do they?
Oh, I don't know. They could.
Well, it's coming up to let's see, 10:58 on a very sad and somber day, one that I actually had mentally I had decided that the Queen was actually going to see her century. That this wouldn't happen for a few years to come. In fact, I almost thought that I might go before she does. But the day has come, and it is a sad day. What we've done today is we took a look back at her the beginning of the Jubilee year, and some of the things that have happened since she ascended to the throne. Well, she ascended in 1952, but the coronation was in 1953. So that was very pensive. But then after that, it's a bit like the Irish wake, where younger people don't understand the Irish wake because everybody gets drunk and laughs and jokes and so on and so forth, when they think that they should be sitting with morose faces for the departed. But what we've done today, this morning, with your help, and mostly you, is we've had a jolly good time. We've talked about things from dolphins to tuna sandwiches to what we're doing at work and what we did on Labor Day. It's been great stuff. It's the sort of stuff that people viewing here like to hear, because we do not understand how you live in the States any more than probably, except for the iconic way that we present some things, that we live here in Britain. And that's educative. But by the same token, when you make it fun the way that you two do, then what we did this morning is we threw our cares away and forgot just for a moment that we'd lost our monarch. Losing your head of state is always difficult. But when it's been the same one for 70 years, it is really traumatic for the country. And the pictures from the BBC this morning outside Buckingham Palace were with people turning up with flowers and so on, as indeed they did for Diana, and putting them outside the railings and expressing their grief personally. So the whole country is in mourning, and you've made a mourning country have a mourning to remember, with a bit of fun, a bit of jollity, a bit of hilarity, and always the very good memories that you two have. So thank you very much. It is now 11 o'clock exactly. We will say farewell to each other. And Suzanne, I hope don't find another holiday on Monday. We'll see you on Monday.
See you on Monday. We'll kick off the week.
Right.
I'll
and Melissa,
tune in and say hello.
All right.
yeah, why not? And we'll see you
Good morning.
next Friday, Melissa. And it is, I actually, because I want to sort of move back a little bit, plan to do the Monday show and the Friday show. And the Monday show has Suzanne, and the Friday show has Melissa. Guess who arranged that? We'll see you next week.
Okay. All right. Take care, Keith.
Bye,
Toodle
everybody.
pip.
Bye, Keith. Have a good
Toodle
day.
pip.
Right, saying goodbye to our two good friends in the United States, Melissa and Suzanne, both very bubbly ladies, very exciting, a great deal of fun, and with lots of experiences, whether they're ancient or modern, to take us through the day. This is the day that we had to look at headlines with the papers with very little copy, and with pictures of our lovely Queen, who passed away yesterday, and that we are trying hard to remember without getting maudlin, and try to reflect her life and what's happened in that life, which is considerable. And I consider myself to be privileged to have lived all through her reign. I was 13 when she took office in 1953, and I will not tell you how old I am. You can work it out from the maths, I guess. When she died at Balmoral, we are told peacefully in her sleep, "Rest in peace, Your Majesty. You actually have been an absolute inspiration to this country, and for that matter, to a great part of the world." Next week is another week. Next week, we can see what our new Prime Minister is up to. We will, of course, have a state funeral, and we will, of course, have a coronation. But that's in the future. Today is a day that we can mourn, that we can grieve, but by the same token, we can laugh, because she was a monarch who was full of fun. And in a world sometimes is topsy-turvy, that was worth its weight in gold. See you Monday. Toodle pip.